Hey, how's it going? It's Jamie McDonald here. Been quite a while since I've put together any sort of content for this channel. Figure I'm a little bit long overdue. Today I want to go over a processing technique that you've probably seen all over the internet in some of your favorite photographers' photos. You've probably watched some videos on YouTube about it, and that process is called layer masking. I want to do my take on it because I want to show you how to quickly do this. A lot of videos I watched on this tend to be a little lengthy. I just want to get straight to the point and show you how to do this quickly, efficiently, so that you can get through your photos and back out shooting again. So let's start off with Lightroom open, and you can see I've got a series of photos that I took of my truck the other morning at sunrise. She's kind of become my new model lately, so if I don't have something that I want to shoot, I just go take pictures of my truck. So what I've got set up here is bracketed images, and you may be familiar with bracketing your photos so that you can do HDR images with them. We'll get sort of similar results, but I think a lot better results if we use layer masking instead of just merging all of these images together. You get a more dramatic look. How about that? So I've got a series of 3 images here. I've got 2 of them highlighted already in Lightroom. I've got one that is really underexposed, not quite as underexposed as this middle one right here. But this one on the left is underexposed enough to where I've got a ton of detail in the sky, which is what I want. I want really dramatic and moody in the sky for this finished product. And then the other image on the right that I've got highlighted as well is the one that is overexposed a bit. I won't go into details on how to set your camera up for that. I suggest you just jump on YouTube or into your user manual to figure out how to bracket. But I will tell you these were shot with the Sony a7 III. They're stopped down to f9 so I could get a bunch of depth. And the lens that I was using was a 14mm f2.8 lens from Samyang. I love that lens. Super cheap. If you're a Sony user or any other user, check that lens out. But I've got my 2 bracketed images here selected. I've got the dark one. I've got the light one where the foreground and my truck are exposed well enough to get a lot of detail out of them. And with those 2 selected, I just want to go up to Photo, and I want to edit in. And my last option here is to open as layers in Photoshop. So we click that. Got to wait a second here for it to open in Photoshop, and here we go. Slowly, boom. Okay, I think we've got both of our layers open now. There we go. All right, I like to work with the lighter image on the top. So I'm going to move that up to the top here on my layers on the right-hand side here. And the next step is going to be to create a layer mask, and that's this little icon down here. It looks like a rectangle with a hole punched out of it. We're going to click on that. And what you might not have noticed is my color palette over here on the left, my color selector is switched to black and white. I had a yellow color there a second ago, but it converts to black and white. And what that does is with black selected, and let me make my brush a little bit bigger so you can see what's going on here. That's a big brush. When we start painting with a brush with the color black selected, what it's doing is it's masking out that top layer to let the bottom layer show through. And you could simply go through and just paint away like this and do it all by hand, and it's great. But you start painting over the top of things, and like this oil rig deal here in the background just becomes thrown completely into shadow, and it becomes a silhouette. It's kind of cool, kind of a dramatic look, but I want that to have a little bit more detail. So let's undo that, and I'll show you how I go about basically masking the areas that I want masked the most. So I'm going to go off of our layer mask selection. I'm going to click on my layer here, and then I'm going to go over to the object selection tool. I love this feature in Photoshop. It has gotten so good. And if I hover over my truck, there we go. I was going to say it highlights it, but it actually just kind of puts this black mask over it to let you know that that's what it's going to select if you click on it. So if I click on it, my truck is now selected. So meaning if I go through and start painting the sky, it's not going to affect my truck. But I also wanted this oil rig piece of equipment, I don't know what it's called, selected as well, because I don't want that affected by our brushing away this top layer. So to add to this selection, you simply hold down the shift key and just click on it and let it do its thing. It's not perfect. You can see that it's also kind of grabbed these trees down here on the right hand side. It's missed some areas, like in here it completely missed it. That's okay, we'll go back and we'll fix that by hand, and I promise we'll do this quickly. I also want this oil drum here in the background selected, and if I hover over it, see, Photoshop's not recognizing that as something that I want selected, so we'll manually select that. We'll hold again the shift key down so we can add to this selection, and I'm just going to click and drag, left mouse click button, click and drag and let go, and that adds to the selection. Now that's great, sort of, but if I start painting, we're going to be painting this because it's the selection. We want to paint the sky out, or mask out the sky. So we need to invert this selection. The keyboard shortcut for it is Shift-Command-I on the Mac, or Control-Shift-I on Windows, or you can also find it up here under the Select menu item and just go to Inverse. And then we invert that selection. Now if we go to Paint or Mask, we're not going to be masking in this area here. We've inverted it, so now we can mask out the sky. You could also mask out the foreground, but we don't want to do that. We want that to be exposed in the finished image as well. So we'll go back to our brush tool, and then we'll start masking, right? Wrong. This was a blooper on my part. Let's undo that. We have to go back and select our layer mask and then start masking. I can't believe I did that, but I'm not going to shoot this video again. I want it to be quick. So let's start masking. Let's just get really quick here, and let's just run in here, and we'll just start painting away, painting away, painting away. And I'm using a brush that is soft, a soft brush. So don't use a hard brush. You want to turn your hardness all the way down. And the reason for that, interruption on my phone, is because we want this to be feathered. We don't want it to go really harshly into the trees. And I need to move my mic arm out of the way a little bit so I can see what I'm doing here. But we're just going to start painting in here, or masking, to get this sky exposure lower down. We want that background sky to show through. And again, you could just paint right through the trees if you want. I don't want to do that. I want the trees to have a little bit of detail in those. And the only way to do that is going to be to just feather in there. And then we're going to get tight against the truck again because it's selected, it's safe. Or we inverted the selection rather, and it's safe. It's not going to be affected by this. So we can hit Command D and we can deselect here. Now we've got these areas in this oil rig, or derrick, I don't know what you call this thing, that we still need to mask. You could go in with a really small brush and start painting, or we could use some selection tools to do that. We're not going to be selecting an object, so instead we're going to use the quick selection tool. And just a little tip here, if you're using the quick selection tool and your brush size is large, it's going to just cover a larger area really quickly, but it loses a little bit of detail around the edges. The fine detail it kind of doesn't do a good job on. So I like to use usually a smaller brush size when I'm doing this. So I'm down here at 20 pixels, and I want a hard edge on this because I want it to snap to those hard edges on this oil rig. So I'm just going to jump in here, and let me zoom in a little bit. Let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. And just click and drag a little bit, and it's going to select that whole area there. And now you can go back again, just like we were earlier, and you can mask. And then we'll just hit Command D to deselect that. That's one way to get through these. Another way to kind of tidy up things a little bit, like on the edge of my truck here, I'm just going to go back up, and I'm going to use the polygonal lasso tool. And again, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I got to look around my mic here because I can't see my keyboard. And I'm just going to come in here. And because these are mostly like straight edges for the most part, there's no contours and curves, I'll just kind of click and I'll just draw this area that I want to be working in. And we're trying to do this quickly so you guys can get back to doing something else, watching another video. So I'm not going to be super precise, but again, if you're doing your own piece here, you might want to be a little more precise with it. And I'm not sure why. Photoshop is not showing me my brush. There we go. It's back. So now we just go and mask in here. Deselect that. Ooh, look at that. That's kind of harsh, right? let's just jump back in and fix that area right through there. Make that brush a little bit smaller so I can get in tighter. Get rid of that line we had there. There we go. You get the idea. You just want to come in and just kind of refine those edges so you don't end up with what kind of in a finished product would look like a glow or a halo around it. I'll do a little bit around the roof here really quick to just kind of tidy up this line. Again, not perfect, but I'm just trying to be quick here and show you the gist of it. You go in when you're doing your image, take your time, especially if you're going to be printing some of this stuff out for a client, friend, family, what have you. You'll want to pay a little bit more attention to the details than I'm doing in this video. We'll just get rid of that line that was around the roof there. Deselect that. Let's zoom back out a little bit and see how that looks. Much better. When you have that light line around things, it really makes your subject feel like it was pasted into the scene, and we don't want to do that. And that's it, folks. That's really literally about it. You would want to go in and kind of button up around the edges here. There's more things that you can do to the finished image. I'll drag over a finished image from my other screen so you can see what the finished image looked like. I did forget a spot. I just kind of whipped this out really quick. Can you find the spot that I missed? I can. It's right here, and it drives me nuts. But it is what it is. Finished product, you guys. Really quick tutorial on layer masking. I can't even speak. Layer masking. If you've got any questions about this technique, if you want a little more information or detail on it, leave a comment below. I'll be glad to get back with you on it. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Share it with somebody who might benefit from this technique. Don't forget to subscribe so that I can become a YouTube millionaire off of these videos. Just kidding. It's not going to happen anytime soon. But thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening, and get out there and go shoot. Take care.